Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. You're watching The Big Picture with the host Rajat Kane. In this edition of The Big Picture, we'll discuss contours of India's policy on China and Pakistan. In his first TV interview of the year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke at length on the importance India gives to the ties with immediate neighbours and more so to China and Pakistan. On Indo-China ties, especially after military face-off at Doklam Plateau in June-August 2017, Prime Minister said that nothing had happened that could be termed as a deceit by China on India. In a further reference to relations with China, Mr. Modi said that new opportunities to have arisen for cementing some cracks in the relations, emphasizing that India's principal position for long has been friendly relations with neighbours. The economic and geostrategic ambitions of neighbours will continue to shape India's responses on almost every front. Now, turning focus on Pakistan, Prime Minister Modi said India has never opposed to a dialogue with Pakistan, and it has been the consistent policy of the country that there should be a dialogue on issues. However, he emphasized that one thing is clear, that dialogue cannot be heard in the middle of noise of bombs and guns. Now, to discuss more on India's worldview on China and Pakistan, we're joined with Mr. Prabhu Foreign Ambassador, Mr. Ashok Sajanhar, former ambassador, and Akhilesh Suman, Foreign Affairs Editor of Rajya Sabha TV. But before we start the discussion, let's have a look at what the Prime Minister has to say in his interview on India's policy with Pakistan.
हमारे देश की एक कंसिस्टेंट पॉलिसी है, यूपी एनडीए नहीं है, ये मोदी मनमोहन सिंह नहीं है, कंसिस्टेंट पॉलिसी है कि हम चर्चा के लिए तैयार हैं। हमारी कंसिस्टेंट पॉलिसी है सभी विषयों पर चर्चा करने के लिए तैयार है। ऐसा नहीं कि ये विषय होगा तो नहीं करेंगे, ये विषय होगा नहीं, सभी विषयों पर, क्योंकि भारत का ग्राउंड बहुत स्ट्रांग है। हमारा कहना इतना ही है कि बम बंदूक में बातचीत सुनाई नहीं देती है। आतंकवाद बंद होना चाहिए, क्रॉस टेररिज्म बंद होना चाहिए, और इस पर हम लगातार दबाव बनाए हुए हैं। हमने दुनिया में वातावरण बनाया है। आज टेररिस्टों को मदद करने वाला पाकिस्तान अलग थलग पड़ गया है, यह हकीकत है। और दूसरी बात है, घटनाएं भी सीमित हुई हैं। आज मानवता में विश्वास करने वाले, कानून में विश्वास करने वाले, देश की एकता अखंडता में विश्वास करने वालों का हाथ ऊपर है।
Well, starting a discussion with former Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Sir, Prime Minister couldn't have been more clear on the views in Pakistan that India is open to all the talks on all the issues, but that cannot happen under the shadow of guns and bombs. Do we see any headway in Indo-Pak ties in this scenario?
Well, India has time and again signaled to Pakistan that it wants closer relations across the board. But Pakistan, on the other hand, has continued to pursue a policy of waging covert warfare or proxy warfare against India. It is now a well-established fact that the ISI and the armed forces of Pakistan have it as a very central part of their policy to wage such warfare against India, which utilizes terrorist outfits and also some of the Pak army cadres. Now, we have been pointing out to them that if they wage such warfare, then a dialogue is not possible. Pakistan wants to have a dialogue mainly relating to Kashmir. We have said that we want to discuss all issues, but we will do so only after you stop terrorist activities. That has not happened. As you know, even today, we've read about more terrorist activities taking place from across the border. So I think the Prime Minister was absolutely right that dialogue cannot take place when there is the noise of guns and bombs. And I think this part has been made very clear, but of course, it's tragic that the Pakistan army does not give up its policy of hostility towards India, which leads to its waging of covert warfare, as I said, or proxy warfare against us. And until that stops, I do not see any meaningful dialogue taking place. The Prime Minister said it is not just the NDA, but even the UPA before that. This has been the consistent policy of the government of India, not to engage in any dialogue with Pakistan if it insists on waging terrorist warfare against us.
Right. Ambassador Sajjan Har, we saw a change of government in Pakistan. Do you see, has anything changed within Pakistan in the intradynamics of the civilian government and the military ISI? Because that happens to be the bone of contention, and that happens to be the locus of all the terror activities that has been infused to India, be it Kashmir or be it other parts.
No, you're very right, Rajat, because when the new government came and Prime Minister Imran Khan, he said that if India walks one step, we are willing to take two steps in that direction. But of course, what has really been lacking in this is that Pakistan needs to walk the talk. Meaning the point that has been made by Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, it was made by the Prime Minister, that terror and talks cannot go together. And what is fueling the terror from the other side is that it is the army, it is the Pakistan army, and it is their intelligence agency, ISI, which determines their policy as far as India is concerned. And they do it because it is in their own personal interest of the army to paint India as an enemy power, as a hostile power, because it is only under those circumstances that they can have all the power, all the perks, all the facilities, all the privileges to them, and all the funding that is coming, the resources that are coming to them from outside. So it is in their own interest to ensure that relations with India do not improve. So it is the biggest obstacle that we see in the improvement of relations between India and Pakistan is the role of the army, which determines not only relations with India, relations also with Afghanistan, relations also with the United States, also Pakistan's nuclear policy. So I do not see that there can be any possibility of, at least in the foreseeable future, because after the new government has come, we have not seen anything on the ground which would give us any hope that some rethink on use of terror as an instrument of policy by the Pakistan government is being made.
Right. Akhilesh, do we see Pakistan mending its way? Like you've been covering, you cover foreign affairs, and I'm sure you speak to a lot of journalists and all. Do we see Pakistan mending its ways with this new government? Because that happens to be, because we will engage with or rather any government engages with the civilian government.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know that Imran Khan government is much weaker than any other government previously, because Nawaz Sharif was much more stronger person politically as well as mass base wise. Benazir Bhutto was much more stronger than Imran Khan also. She has a legacy. So expecting too much from Imran Khan will be a mistake, because Imran Khan is very good at words. He speaks very well,
right,
and he has a very good physique also, so he tries to impress people by all those things. But given the fact that India has been initiator of peace initiatives many a times, if you remember Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, he took the risk of going by bus, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi changing the direction of his flight to Lahore,
right,
just to meet Nawaz Sharif, that then and his family function. So it was really something very touching when Prime Minister Narendra Modi changed the direction of his flight, and we were also reporters, we were also a bit surprised and shocked that how can he do. But we realized that it was a big initiative from Indian side, that yes, we can maintain ties and we can become a normal neighbor, normal countries between the two normal countries live. But if you talk to the diplomats and if you talk to officials who are sitting in the defense or other agencies, you will feel that they are very, based on realities. Because, they are confronting the reality on everyday basis. So they have said that we have given polite and impolite messages to Pakistan many a times, make it normal. But they have not agreed, and they, even if they play with their words, but it does not realized on the ground. So it is very less hope, But we hope that when Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that most of the time it is not just one war that will change the direction of India-Pakistan relationship. He used the word, this word. So I think you need a long, engagement with Pakistan, both ways.
Very briefly, would you rather elaborate on, as you just mentioned, that Imran Khan happens to be the weaker prime minister as compared to his predecessors. By that, do you mean that his administration seems to be controlled by a hidden hand of military and ISI?
Yeah, everyone has started speaking after Imran Khan. We also started raising question on his own efficiency, and he himself said that we are at one point, we are one on the issues of everything with army. So he himself is accepting. Nawaz Sharif or Benazir Bhutto used to display their own independence and autonomy as far as the Pakistan policy and governance is concerned. But Imran Khan, from day one, he is telling that we and army are at one point as far as everything is concerned. So I think that this is the testimony that he is going to be guided by what army wants. He will not going to confront with army at any point of time.
Right. Yeah, you want to add something to it, sir?
Well, taking off from where Mr. Akhilesh Suman left, when Imran Khan became Prime Minister, he promised a Naya Pakistan. Okay. But we do not see any signs of that Naya Pakistan shaping out. The hold of the army on the government is still as strong as it was, maybe stronger. The religious extremists are playing a very important role in shaping the thinking of the government. And the hostility of Pakistan towards India continues as before. Now, what happens is that with the sort of policies that Pakistan pursues, it is impoverishing itself. Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves are now about $7.6 billion, which are just enough to meet a few weeks of imports. And it is going around with a begging bowl to Saudi Arabia, to UAE, to China, without realizing that in the real sense, Pakistan can be prosperous only when the South Asian region becomes prosperous, and for that it is important for India and Pakistan to have good relations.
Right.
We have been offering all kinds of suggestions to them. In fact, the South Asian Free Trade Agreement was signed between all the countries of SAARC, but Pakistan has impeded the implementation of that. So with the result, Pakistan's own economy has not grown in order to be able to take care of its needs. And it's a totally impoverished country. So I do not see that in the near future, Pakistan will mend its ways or change its thinking, and we will have to cope with the old Pakistan despite Imran Khan's promise of a new Naya Pakistan.
Right. So there was this clarity clearly by the Prime Minister's words that Indo-Pakistan relations can only improve in Pakistan, mend its way. Now, the other facet of the interview was India's relations with China. Prime Minister referred to Doklam standoff. At the same time, he said the opportunities are on. There are opportunities to serve and see and how relations between India and China could be improved further. Ambassador Sajjan Har, I mean, what are those opportunities in the anvil that one would like to emphasize between India and China?
You know, I think if I go back to when the Chinese President Xi Jinping came to India in September 2014, is, just after Prime Minister Modi took office. And at that time also we had seen that there was disquiet on our border, that there was an incursion from the Chinese side. And at that time, the Prime Minister had said that both the countries will really not be able to realize the full potential of their bilateral ties unless there is peace and tranquility on the border. Right. So I think peace and tranquility on the border is very, very essential. We saw what happened in Doklam, and that is the question that was posed to the Prime Minister also. And that led to, notwithstanding the meeting in Xiamen, there was the BRICS summit that took place in Xiamen on the 4th of September last year. And that was the place where, we were talking about Pakistan and terrorism, that there were 10 terrorist groups that were identified in the BRICS declaration, out of which 8 are based in Pakistan. And even, just one more comment on Pakistan, that the Financial Action Task Force has also identified Pakistan as in money laundering and in supporting terrorism. So, to support the point that Pakistan is not going to change its colors, notwithstanding what it says. But coming back to China, that in Xiamen the meeting took place, but after that there was the informal summit in Wuhan on the 27th, 28th of April. After that, there have been a number of meetings. The last one was in Buenos Aires at the G20 session. There are a number of areas, there are a number of possibilities where both the countries can work together. One of them was identified when the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi came here, and there was to promote people-to-people contact and cultural cooperation. I think both countries have a 4,000 kilometer long border with each other. However, their knowledge and understanding of each other is still rather rudimentary. The other is trade and commerce, the other is investment. And trade and commerce, notwithstanding the fact that we have an 84 billion bilateral trade between each other. For the first time, trade has crossed $80 billion, but still India is suffering a $63 billion trade deficit with China. So I think that there is a great possibility of removing this imbalance. Discussions did take place in Buenos Aires. There was reports that more exports of soya meal, more exports of rice, non-basmati rice, that also discussion took place in Wuhan. I think definitely more can be done to make the trade more balanced. Greater investment from China into India, that can be done so that greater production here and its export back to China. We also, at that time when the Wuhan informal summit took place, also there was this discussion on working in Afghanistan. So for the first time we had diplomats, Afghan diplomats coming here to India, Foreign Service Institute, they went to China. So I think there are a number of areas in terms of improving confidence between the two countries and ensuring that there is a better working relationship. And in that context, the visit of the Defense Minister, visit of the Internal Security Minister, when there was an agreement that was signed between the two countries as to how to deal with the problems by elements in the two countries, and also by Mr. Wang Yi, the Foreign Minister, I think that promotes and improves confidence and trust between the two countries.
Akhilesh, it's fascinating that even after having downslide or on issues like Doklam and all, India and China have this communications line on. They at least work on confidence building measures. There is some sort of a communication which try and re-establish the talks and all. Where do you see the exploration of soft powers? Just as Ambassador Sajjanhar said that we don't know much about each other. So does soft powers or exploration on that facet gives leverage to both the countries to develop ties further? You've just been to China, just to add, you've just been to China.
Yeah, I had been to China recently, and they took us to, Quzhou province, and there is a Guiyang city where they are, establishing big data industry. And they have a collaboration and they have signed some MOU with our NIIT in Bangalore. So they are trying to project themselves as they want to take advantage of Indian expertise in information technology. Though we had been telling for a long time that please take our soft power advantage, but they were not agreeing. But now I think they are trying to realize that we have to have certain level of engagement with India on trade and commerce front also. So in that way they went to Bangalore and they are trying to invite and engage our software professionals in Quzhou. But given that fact that India has always been realistic about China, and Doklam has been one of the examples that how realistic Prime Minister Modi was when Doklam stand up. It was a issue of major decision and he decided to go whatever it takes. And then China also realized that India is not that India that they did earlier. So now China realizes that India is engaging not with Russia, but India is also expanding its, and if you have good relation with USA, China also feels that yes, we have to be restrained. And so China is trying to project itself that it wants to be closer to India in soft power. But what I get from Indian side, that we want to walk the talk. Please show us something that we can feel and Indian people feel that yes, you are trying to do something with India, so that people can also understand that there is a goodwill. But China has not shown anything till now. There are talks about basmati, non-basmati rice, there are talks about pharma industry collaboration, there are talks about IT industry, but they have to show us in a big way that yes, you are willing to engage with us in that way. Otherwise, I think it will be based on realities.
Ambassador Dayal, as just Akhilesh mentioned, that this is China is realizing that this is new India. This is not the one which they possibly engaged earlier. So this government's policy vis-a-vis China, where do you see going long term in building better relations?
Well, as our Prime Minister said in his interview, India wants excellent relations with all our neighbours. Right. And as Ambassador Sajanhar said, the possibilities for Indo-Chinese trade to blossom are immense. And he rightly said that for the first time, bilateral trade has crossed $80 billion. It now is around $84 billion. But the Chinese somehow are not helpful when it comes to allowing us to increase our exports. Ambassador Sajanhar pointed out that the balance of trade is something like $63 billion in their favour. Now, the most important exports from our point of view to China are pharmaceuticals and software exports, and China is severely restricting these. It places all kinds of restrictions which do not allow our companies to export pharmaceutical products and their software products to China. China has shown a degree of sensitivity to our concerns, but it has not gone along towards alleviating them. It has adopted a similar approach on other issues also. For instance, it has gone full steam ahead with the China-Pakistan economic corridor, despite our protests that it passes through disputed territory and territory which actually belongs to India and was forcibly occupied by Pakistan. It has shown scant regard for anything that we have been pointing out in terms of Chinese assistance to Pakistan in strengthening the military capability. China is Pakistan's biggest arms supplier. Right. In fact, today's papers mention that it is going to build 4 warships for Pakistan. And against whom are these warships going to be used? They're going to be used against India. So we have been at pains to point out to the Chinese that by strengthening Pakistan's military capabilities, it is allowing Pakistan to become more hostile towards us. Right. But both China and Pakistan have referred to each other as their all-weather friend. And that friendship to a great extent comes at our cost. Right. So while I agree that the possibilities of developing an all-round relationship with China are immense, but the Chinese have to show sensitivities towards our concern. Right. They have not been doing so till now.
Ambassador Sajanhar, India has a clear vision and one could say ambition as well to be a regional superpower, and more so in the Indian Ocean region. Now, at the same time, we see China also spreading its tentacles over there. So, and parallel to that, China's ties with Pakistan. How does India balance this fragile equation and at the same time maintain or rather improve ties with China?
You know, India has always had, as far as Indian Ocean is concerned, it has been the sphere of influence as far as India is concerned. It is China which is a new entrant. China has never been present here. So I think it is the entry of China which is really creating some disruption as far as Indian Ocean is concerned. Now, it is very clear, what China has done in South China Sea, that irrespective of the fact that the decision by the International Court of Justice, by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in July 2016 went against China, but it has occupied about 90% of South China Sea. So it is coming here into the Indian Ocean and it is getting, let us say, outposts, whether it is in Myanmar or it is in Sri Lanka, Hambantota, or it is in Maldives. Gwadar is of course there with it, also in Djibouti. So it's, what was earlier termed also as the string of pearls around India, and also expanding its presence as far as Indian Ocean is concerned. Now, for India to maintain, to ensure that there is peace, there is security, India might not be able to do it entirely on its own in terms of creating a balance as far as China is concerned. So I think in that context, its collaboration, partnership, whether it is with the United States, whether it is with Japan. So we have seen a number of initiatives, whether it is on the context of the Indo-Pacific discussions that have been going on. Recently in Buenos Aires, there was the trilateral meeting, what Prime Minister Modi termed it as JAY, Japan, America, India, all three countries coming together and seeing how to ensure that how China's rise is balanced in that sense.
Right.
And also we have had some meetings at junior official levels of the Quad, that is US, Japan, India and Australia. And I think there also to develop the concept of Indo-Pacific so that it is free, it is open, it is inclusive and it is prosperous. That is what Prime Minister Modi also mentioned in his address at the Shangri-La Dialogue. And this is how India wants to take it forward, that there is peace, security and stability that is maintained in the Indian Ocean.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen. We have to wrap it up here. Thanks all of you for joining us. So clearly, India is quite clear in the foreign policy that it wants better ties with its neighbours and more so with China and Pakistan. It's time now that both these countries walk the talk. Thank you for watching Big Picture on Rajya Sabha TV.